So here are the three areas. And the way I've put them in this presentation is what will be the drivers, what will be the technology, and what does that mean to us as we go forward. And that is a better way of looking at it than the way I said we put it together. So first let me look at, let's just see it from a Texas Instruments perspective. Why am I interested in moving forward in the world of digital signal processing, of embedded processing, and all of the analog goes around it? Why would that be interesting? Well, if you look at the digital side, the part we participate in very well is this one, and you see it's got a nice growth rate of about 22%. If you project that out to 2020, you get in the order of $30 billion worth of opportunity. Now, if anybody asks where that number came from, it came from me. But I have another one. On the analog side, you know, we look at that and we say, wow, to me the digital side is exciting because it's growing at a large rate. This says it's only going to grow at maybe 10%, but you take that out to 2020 and you get 100 billion. And so you look at it and say, okay, that's really interesting to me as a vendor. But I'm a very simple person. If this isn't interesting to our system design customers and their customers, these numbers don't mean anything. And so with that, let me step out and say, let's look at this same thing from my customer perspective, or my customer's perspective, and it looks something like this. Here are the things that you see a lot of activity going on right now. Video and imaging, automotive, industrial, infrastructure stuff. It really is kind of fun. Medical is beginning. You actually saw us stand up and admit we were in the medical business. Fun story there, but I won't tell it because I'll probably get in trouble for it. And so you look at that and say, those are all interesting areas, but the two things that are more interesting is they're going to continue to move forward, and there are going to be some new ones we don't even know about. They're going to start up. So from a system designer standpoint, there's a lot of fun in our future. Let me look at it a different direction, and these were the words I used in our study on this slide, because I really want to look at it in a different perspective. And so I look at green, and I actually break up green in 4 different directions. If you think on the macro level, the large scale, we have a lot of activity in how do I find alternative energy. Great opportunity for technology to take over. There's another half to that, and that is how do I reduce the amount of energy I'm using as an individual. There are things like better motor control, fluorescent lights. My first big interest in the whole green movement is when I got a very expensive electric bill at my house. Then it hit home. Green, this is a U.S. quip, so you have to understand. I realized that green really meant putting more green in my pocket. Now the U.S. dollars are all green. And so all of a sudden green was important to me when it meant taking more dollar bills and sticking them in my pocket, not in the power company's pocket. And so I began to look at, gee, how do I get green? And I believe that is a huge opportunity of not how do we save the environment, which we should be doing, but when we can get it personal, how can I save money? How can it cost me less to enjoy all the advantages I have, which means less energy. So that's one side. There are 2 sides. There's another one I call microgreen, and that is something I have a couple more slides on and I'll spend more time on, but the idea of when I can get integrated circuit so low power they no longer need a battery or energy. They just run by themselves. And the extent of that, or the end solution, is a perpetual device, and I'll get back to that in a minute. So that's green. Robotics. I look at robotics, and I and another fellow inside of TI are out talking to companies about robotics, and I've tried to use a new term that I think is a better solution to what we're after, and that is, I am interested in consumer robotics. And what I mean by that is, how can I get a robot to do those things I don't want to do, and perhaps do those things I cannot do. So that's personal. How do I get robotics for me? But there's another concept, and that is, how do I begin to interface with a robot? So I have natural language, I have visual I/O. There's all of the things that we take for granted as we communicate with each other. How do I begin to give that capability to a robot? Very interesting area, takes a lot of performance to do. So let me look at another one, and that's full immersion. I could have said entertainment, but I really don't want to use that term because that narrows it down. Right now, when you think of entertainment, you think about being drawn in visually and audibly. But that's only 2 of the 5 senses, right? In fact, when I tell this story, I say we will be able to pull in all 7 senses. And I always get a confusing look, there's only 5. Well, we'll probably invent 2 more, don't worry. There's still some innovation left there. Let's not hold ourselves to only to the 5 we know about. There may be 2 more, don't know. But it is that idea, how can I pull you into a full immersion capability of all the senses? And I think that's where we're heading in this, because I talk a lot to people in the area of entertainment, of home theater, and I push on the button of what is the next differentiator in TV? Is it more pixels, more dimensions, more color depth? And it's amazing how many people I ask that are looking at the ceiling for the answer. Well, it's not written up there. But that's an important question. What will be that next thing? Don't know. That's the fun. We will find out as we go forward. So that's the idea of full immersion. The last one, which is health, I look at that as an interesting area, particularly when we are able to do perpetual devices, because there are many things that we can do to do implants in the body to give us better health and take away some issues that we have. Well, to do that, we really need those devices to be perpetual. We can't afford to have to surgically replace the batteries. So when I look at the whole area of health, I look at 3 points, and they are when we can manage chronic diseases with technology, when we can predict catastrophic diseases with technology, and when we can make our last months of life comfortable at home. We have eliminated most of the cost of health. And in fact, we've begun to reduce the need for many hospitals. And if you think about that, then you say, well, that's pretty interesting. I can see someday where my alarm clock wakes me up on Monday morning and it says to me, Gene, this would be a good week to see your doctor. Don't panic, but in fact, I've made an appointment for you for 8 o'clock Thursday. I wouldn't miss it if I were you. You know, that kind of helpful hint that it's time to see your doctor because there's something going on that they can correct easily now, but will be more difficult later. Those are the kinds of things I believe we'll be able to begin to see with healthcare, with technology, and that's why I see it as one of the drivers. So